Okay, good morning. Good morning. Welcome. If you're newly joining us, my name is Nicole Rawson. I'm the women's ministry leader here at Coppell Bible. And if you've been with us, well, then you already know the crazy, okay? So you've already seen it, all right? Okay, I want to know, raise your hand if it is your first time at a Bible study with Coppell Bible. Would you raise your hand just so we can see? You guys give them a hand. All right. Heather, good to see you. Heather was in Starting Point this Sunday. You talked to Abby, and bam, you're here. All right, very good. Now, raise your hand if would anyone be brave enough to say, hey, this is my first Bible study ever. I'm here for the first time. Anyone? We've got a couple in the night. Okay, all right, very good. Hey, welcome them. Be sure to pull them aside and encourage them. We don't want to embarrass you, just want to encourage you. All right, well, welcome. Last week, we discussed the importance of being here in the present moment. We said 47% of the time, Harvard researchers are saying we're living in the past, we're living in the future, but very rarely are we here in the present moment. And we looked at all the times Jesus said, hey, I've been with you. I've been with you. I've been with you. I'm here with you. So we're not trying to escape the season. We're not trying to numb or avoid the season. But here we are in the present moment in our season, just like Esther. Now, Esther was here in the moment. Now, she wasn't devoid of fear. And she wasn't, as we discussed, like many oftentimes describe her, like a flawless beauty queen. In fact, she had a very complicated past. But today, what I really want us to focus on is the contrast. We're going to see next week the story really going from more comfort to courage. And she's going to really have to step into that. And today we're going to see King Ahasuerus and all his opulence and extravagance, like the discussion question had mentioned there. And last week, we met our 5 characters. If you weren't here last week, you can access the main teaching link in the email that went out this past Monday. Last week, we talked about the 5 main characters that are central to the plot of Esther. And we understand their roles and their backgrounds. We understand that Esther was an orphan living in exile as a Jew in Persia. We paid careful attention to the theme of God's providence. It comes from the Latin word providentia. You remember that? And so who remembers what pro means? What is usually, if we say, hey, I'm going to produce this? Pro means before. Very good. Pro means before or ahead. So we have pro, and then we have videntia. That sounds like our English word video. What does videntia mean? To see. Very good. So we have to see ahead of time. In God's providence, he's seeing ahead of time. How is he going to weave in these characters and this story for our good, not comfort, but for our good? I'm going to say the definition of providence today is the way God sustains, guides, and governs creation to accomplish his purposes. Again, it's the way God sustains, guides, and governs creation to accomplish his purposes. You're going to notice a little note there. It's often through his care, his involvement, and his ordering of events. Now, this is going to differ from his sovereignty, and we'll get to that in a moment, but God's providence is on full display in the book of Esther. You know, I'm always trying to orient my day and my husband's day and my kids' day for success. And so if I think I care about orienting these things, how can I not assume that my Creator is orienting my season for my good? From the villages of the Amazon, which we visit each summer here at Coppell Bible, all the way to our very own city, be assured that God is acting in his providence. You know, I have to admire our beautiful singer this morning, Stephanie Eskelson, who came up and sang for us, who's leading at the table this morning. You know, I think about when the Eskelsons first came to our church, what was it, 2 years ago, about 2 years ago? And I remember their first Sunday here with all 3 of their adorable children. I remember that. And furthermore, I remember when they came to Life Group, and I love seeing the relationships that develop even within Life Group and the friendships that quickly form, like you kind of knew each other from the beginning. And, you know, I feel that with Stephanie, but I've also seen Stephanie really bond to a Joyce. And Joyce and Stephanie just love each other. And actually, the story of Joyce coming to Life Group starts all the way back in 2024, January 2024, when her sister-in-law, Jolly, her name is Jolly, and she's originally from Zambia. She comes into the coffee shop. I'm working about a block down from my house in Carrollton at the coffee shop. And I've got my laptop out, the Bible out, and at the time we were doing Acts, Church on the Move. Raise your hand if you're here for Acts, Church on the Move. Okay, you guys remember that. Now, we are upstairs. Do you remember that? We were upstairs in the Summit, in the old Summit, before it was renovated, okay? So if you were there with us, then you really saw the crazy, okay? So I was studying, and this young, beautiful, college-age girl comes in, and she sits down next to me, kind of right here, and we're on this long bench, and I'm working and studying and flipping, and she says, "Excuse me, ma'am, what are you studying?" Now, I realize she called me ma'am. But just to be clear, when she retold this testimony last fall, she said she thought I was a college student. So, okay, college student or not, I'm about to be your best friend is what I'm about to be. Okay, so she goes, "Excuse me, ma'am, what are you studying?" And I said, "Oh, I'm studying the book of Acts." She said, "Oh, do you mind if I ask you more questions about that? I have questions about this." And so we just start talking, and pretty soon I said, "Well, you are more than," she goes, "I'm a student here. I'm originally from Zambia. I'm here living with my brother and my sister-in-law just down the street. We've been praying for months for a group of believers to connect with." And I said, "Well, hey, you would be my honored guest. Why don't you come on Wednesday morning and just come sit? We'll have seats for you. You can just come check it out. No worries, no pressure. Just we want you to come. Our heart is that you'd be involved." So they came, and they were kind of just observing and looking and coming. And then they committed, and they started coming, and they joined Life Group. And then before I knew it, when we're walking through difficult seasons, I just love to see, Stephanie, how you met Joyce, how you meet people where they're at. And then God do you see his providence in that, kind of interweaving these lives together? And I just think that's beautiful. So is it any sheer coincidence? Is it luck of the draw? Or is it God sustaining, and where God guides, he provides? Another example I have to think about is Tammy Moyer. Tammy, right there in the middle. Okay, she's leading at the middle table there. Tammy came to us, and I remember corresponding with her about Bible study and her coming. And I remember it was just this last summer. Tammy had already been a big encouragement in my life, but it was really last summer when I was going through a challenging time that Tammy had a word for me, and that was, I was having a challenging time as a mom, mentally, just thinking about leaving my family for 9 days to go to the Amazon village. I was struggling with that. I had promised to go, but I was having some major second thoughts. And I was sharing this with Tammy, and she came here into the present moment. She told me, "That's real." And she didn't tell me not to worry about, but she validated, yes, this is a real thing. This is a real struggle. And she said, "Nicole, I recall when Larry and I were going on a mission trip to India. And at the time, their son David, I think, was around 4 years old. And she said, for me, the worst part was anticipating before I left for the trip. That was the hardest part for me, is the anticipation. Once we landed, we really hit the ground running. There was so much happening in India." And she recalled, and I love seeing this beautiful woman in her 70s recalling back on that. She said, "I still to this day remember the look in those people's eyes and the joy on their faces. I remember the salvations, and I'm forever changed because of it." And it was that very word that helped me commit fully. You understand? Commit fully to the mission. And now I'm forever changed because I went on that Amazon mission trip. Is it coincidence? Is it sheer luck? Or is it God's providence? Let's look today at how he is weaving, not only us, beloved, but is weaving way back then, weaving his people to accomplish his purposes. Again, there's care and involvement there. There's ordering of events. I think about Acts 17:26. It says, "He has determined their pre-appointed times and the boundaries of their dwellings. We say it over and over. We could have been born in 1726. We could have been moms back then. But you know what? He has us in 2026. By his good hand, he said, this is the time that you're going to live. This is your pre-appointed time, and this is the boundary of your dwelling. His sovereignty is going to refer to his supreme authority. So we're seeing more of the Matthew 6:26. I feed the birds. I care for them with the providence. God's sovereignty is God's supreme authority over all creation. And as a mom, I get this. As a mom, I'm like, hey, I'm the mom of the house, okay? I'm the mom of the household. Despite how chaotic it may seem, I'm the mom, I think, all right? I'm the mom of the house. Now, providence is going to be I'm setting out the meat on the counter so it can thaw so we can have dinner later. I'm washing the uniform so we can be ready to go to soccer practice. That's more of the care and the guiding and the weaving and providing for them. But the sovereignty is just mentioning authority. Now, this doesn't take away human responsibility. Rather, it acknowledges God as Lord, as the authority over us. Now, as we begin our journey through the palace hallways in Esther, I pray God grants us the ears to hear and the eyes to see his providence throughout. Remember, the name of God is never mentioned in this book. Yet in his way, which is oftentimes mysterious, it's not right on the surface, and it's definitely not cheesy, but it's going to take us digging together. I want you to notice page 18 in your study book. Page 18 is going to itemize the first feast of 10 in Esther. This is the first one. It's given by King Ahasuerus, and we met him last week. And it's going to reveal the glitz, the splendor, and the pomp. And remember, how long did it last? Does anyone remember? 6 months. Okay, you think hosting for 6 hours, okay? We got guests for 6 months, people, 127 provinces. Let's keep up. Let's keep up, okay? It had us considering the preparation, the entertainment, the cleanup. All right. Whew. Okay. So remember, King Ahasuerus, he's in his 3rd year of 21, so he's relatively early on in his reign, and he's flaunting his wealth. The reason, it's a political motivation. He wants to prove to all his supporters that he, in fact, has the ability to wage war. Remember, his dad tried to go against the Greeks and he died. He now wants to wage war against the Greeks and succeed where his father could not. So he's making a case for war. The whole point? To show off his extensive court and his opulence, proving that he really has what it takes to wage the war he wishes to wage. Yet all of Susa's magnificence and splendor will soon reveal an evil lurking underneath. The threat, the legalized, unmitigated slaughter of Esther's people, the Jews. So imagine this heavy genocide-level threat soon becoming Esther's domain of influence. Do you think from Esther's meager beginnings as an orphan, she could have predicted how her life of royalty would unfold? In other words, do you think she was surprised? What do you guys think? I think she was. And that leads me to my next question. Have you ever had a season surprise you? Have you ever had a season surprise you? If you've been with my teaching before, you understand Hawaii has special significance to me. I have a heart connection with Hawaii, and this surprise will take us there. My son was 21 months old to the day. I will never forget it, 21 months old to the day. Yes, after they turn 2, you stop counting by the month. But until then, they're 21 months, 8 hours, and 56 seconds old. And at that time, he was really living up to his middle name, Zeal. You couldn't guess it from now looking at him, almost 10 years old. But at that time, boy, 18 to 24 months, it was all hands on deck. And I remember my husband and I, yes, we did want a child in the future. However, that was one day, you understand. So we're in Hawaii, and I remember swimming, and I remember just trying to keep him contained. And I have this sensation, and I think, am I pregnant? But I'm just asking within myself, you understand. And Brian and the guys had gone to go get some sushi. So I'm going to I'm being the investigative journalist I am. I leave the beach. I get my 21-month-old, and I put him on my hip. We don't get the stroller or anything. He would have rather been running amok in the streets, okay? But I have him on my hip. We go into the convenience store that's on every corner in Hawaii, known as the ABC store, but it's their convenience store. I go into ABC. The locals working at the front are probably thinking, oh, another tourist, another Hallie. How's it? Aloha, yeah, you got sunscreen up here, you got towels up here, we got floaties up here. I'm like, a test? They're like, huh? Come again, sister. I'm like, a pregnancy test. Like, oh, back wall. So I go back there and I take Ethan, I get the test, I check out, I go back where we stay, I take the test, and I would say to my surprise, now you have to understand, there are probable days you're told to get pregnant, there are improbable days, and then there are near impossible days. So without going into it, I'm trying to piece this together, and I would say to my surprise, but it was to my utter shock, that I was positive pregnant with Chloe girl. At that time, Brian comes back, and he had had some bad sushi, so he's throwing up. And he's like, if you're pregnant, how come I'm the one throwing up? That season would launch me into the greatest surprise of the greatest, most humbling discipleship season. Brian was traveling and working at that time, so I was alone a lot. I was solo in the trenches often. And I remember that season, and it's something I would not have chosen in terms of how hard it is. You understand? I wouldn't have chosen it to be that hard. It was involuntary discipleship in that season with the toddler and being pregnant, and then right after that was amazing preparation and training time in Earth School in my spiritual education with the Lord. And yet, as we said last week, maybe you say, I didn't choose this season. And yes, maybe you didn't choose it or feel ready for it, but God can meet you here in it. Now what, Lord? Here I am, because we can choose how we walk through it. Maybe it was a move. Maybe it was a surprise pregnancy, a job you never saw coming. Maybe you have a child with growing needs, or an aging parent with greater needs. An unexpected diagnosis. Maybe you're uncovering struggles with sin, struggles with boredom or loneliness, or some days just wondering, what is my purpose? As we said last week, here I am, Lord. You brought me to it. Now what? Now, I can't emphasize this enough. Esther was ordinary. Please mark that down. Esther was ordinary. We're going to talk about God in the ordinary. We like to think of her as this just matriarch, but she was ordinary. At one point, she was an orphaned young woman whose life had zero connection with the most powerful ruler in the Persian palace. Think about that one. Yet God, in his providence, would soon weave these lives together, but it starts ordinary. Let me encourage you today. Don't let the ordinary dilute you. Don't let the ordinary discourage you. Don't let the ordinary disillusion you. Don't let ordinary days in your life equate to, this doesn't matter. I don't matter. This season doesn't matter. Instead, let us look to biblical history to find significance in the ordinary. How about the day that Jesus was born? Started ordinary. The shepherds were abiding on the fields, keeping watch over their flock. Ordinary. How about the day the woman of Samaria went to go draw water from the well? Ordinary. She did every afternoon. Let's get a little more intense. How about the day that Jesus resurrected? Well, even his closest friends didn't expect that. Started ordinary. Ordinary. Day after day, most of my friends, most of the women I know, can sum up their Monday, their Tuesday, hopefully not their Wednesday, but probably their Thursday, in 3 short words: no big deal. In other words, ordinary. Chuck Swindoll writes, Days don't begin with divine skywriting. We aren't catapulted into the hours of the morning by some great recognizable movement of God where we can sense his presence or audibly hear his voice. Angelic choirs don't awaken us with celestial harmony, blending their voices into the Hallelujah chorus. However, days that begin uneventfully, keyword ordinary, can also lead to an unbelievable, indescribable series of heart-stopping experiences. Ordinary days, in fact, can become extraordinary. They can become so different, so pivotal, that they change the entire course of our life. It is precisely on these days where no big deal turns to big, big deal. Mommy, tell me about the morning I was born. Well, it started ordinary. And then our water broke, Okay, so you get the idea. Ordinary turning to extraordinary. Friends, may we agree it is on such ordinary of days that Christ will return? He'll split the sky, and it says those who are Christians on earth that we're going to meet him in the air. Prophecy will be fulfilled. It could be tomorrow. It could be today. I hope it's today. That'd be great. But whenever it is, be assured that that morning will begin just as another ordinary day. And as my friend Penny Dyer likes to say, raise your hand if you know Penny, in the evening class, okay, short red hair, can't miss her. She likes to say this when saying goodbye. She said, I'll see you here, there, in the air. But it's going to start ordinary. It might start with coffee, with getting ready for work, etc. With this hope, let's turn to Esther 1. I want you to look at verses 3 through 4. In the 3rd year of his reign, he, King Ahasuerus, made a feast for all his officials and servants, the powers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days in all. King Ahasuerus wanted everyone to know his expanse and his extravagance of his power and his wealth. Notice, his glorious kingdom, his excellent majesty, another translation, his royal glory, his greatness. Not seeking God's glory, but his own. Our study book stated, rather than lifting high his God-given blessings for God's glory, Ahasuerus accumulated them for his own selfish gain. King Ahasuerus was acting in self-interest to impress mankind with his glory. However, this week our study cited Matthew 6, 1 through 4, which talks about doing things in secret and serving as Jesus did, that God may be glorified. Not that we're glorified, but that God's glorified. God is interested in, namely, us laying up treasure not on earth, but where? Where, guys? That's right, laying up treasure in heaven. And actually, it's not a suggestion by Jesus, but it's a command. Store up for yourselves, lay up for yourselves, imperative. It's like saying, put your backpack on the hook, put your water bottle on the table, let's get in the car and go. It's an imperative command. It's a command that we lay up treasure in heaven. So we store up treasure in heaven. How? Great question. Look no further than the footsteps of Messiah. You see, he took the form of a servant. Imagine a dish towel around his arm. He took the form of a servant, humble, and served. One of the strongest arguments for Christianity is not only what Jesus taught, salvation by faith, apart from works, only through Christ. It's not just what he taught. But notice, it's also how he came, and it's also how he lived. And this is in contrast to King Ahasuerus. So again, one of the strongest arguments for Christianity is not only what Jesus taught, but he did back it up, didn't he? How he came and how he lived. Let's look into this. It's been well stated with apologists debating other religions of the world, including Islam. And by the way, I have friends in all of these religions, including my Jew crew, not Messianic Jews, but Jews that think the Messiah has not yet come. So we have all the religions of the world. We have all these roads that they say can lead to heaven. We're going to reject that. There's only one way. I researched the list of killings from the Prophet Muhammad in the religion of Islam. whether it be because someone mocked or insulted him. And I stopped reading after the 144th line, and some of those are individuals and some of those are groups that he waged war upon. Throughout history, Christian apologists have debated well-meaning, though sorely mistaken, Muslims stating lovingly yet truthfully, your Muhammad came with a sword to fight and to wage war, while Jesus came with a servant's dish towel to wash feet. Jesus came not with a sword, but with what? A towel. John 13, 4 through 5. He got up from the table, took off his outer robe, tied a towel around his waist, and began to wash the disciples' feet. In the ancient world, foot washing was the job of the lowest servant. Yet Jesus, whom the Christians worship as God, took the lowest position imaginable. This is unprecedented because no other religion begins with God kneeling to serve his creation. And there is, well beyond Islam, religions that show what I'm going to call a plurality of morality. And I've written this on a napkin more times than I can count, especially when I encounter other people out and about. Just grab a napkin, restaurant, or wherever, and draw it. And say, you're emphasizing something really important here. What are you noticing here? Yes, that connects with this. And you can just draw this simply, and I hope it'll be helpful to you. But you look at the other little g gods, look at Buddha, look at Gandhi, look at Muhammad, look at Joseph Smith, look at the founders of other religions, and we're going to see those religions saying some nice things, saying, yes, love. One of the 5 pillars, give alms to the poor. When you read the Buddha, you can learn much. But yet, look at what they're saying. None of them died on a cross for you. None of them loved to the point of sacrifice. In this, we see the difference of how Jesus came and how he lived. So when we compare the founders of major religions, a striking contrast emerges. Okay, so look at all the plurality of morality. Do good, do good. How do you get to life with God? You got to do. Let's look at this. Throughout the course of human history, there's a saying, all roads lead to heaven. This is not biblical. Do not be deceived, they don't. Throughout the course of human history, mankind faces the chronic temptation to achieve God's kingdom through attempts of noble pursuits. Truly, these attempts are nothing more than illusions. Now, the Spirit of God is the great unmasker of illusions, primarily through his truth, through his word. Now, losing our illusions is difficult because illusions is the stuff we live by. The Spirit of God is going to unmask this, including thinking, quote, we're pretty good people. What did Jesus come to do? What did he preach? What did he teach? What did he really say? In every major world religion, they're asking, how do we get to God? How do we achieve, interesting word, how do we achieve life with God? How do we get there? Well, let's look. In Islam, their God is Allah, their prophet is Muhammad. He's an angry God who must be appeased. What you must do? Follow the 5 pillars. Perform good works. Obey religious law. And hope your good deeds outweigh your bad. Even Muhammad said he did not know if he would enter paradise. Buddhism. God is enlightenment. The goal is enlighten yourself. There's no personal God. The ultimate goal is that you must follow the 8-fold path. Now we're up to 8 things. Detach from desire, meditate, and reach nirvana. Salvation comes from self-effort and self-perfection. Hinduism. There's millions of gods. Pick one. You're trapped in an endless cycle of reincarnation. Choose a god, follow rituals, accumulate good karma, and advance through countless lifetimes. There's no final assurance and no personal savior, and no certainty, just try again and repeat. Mormonism. You and I become gods eventually. You're going to achieve it through organizational loyalty and endurance. Same with Jehovah's Witness. There's one God, but it's not Jesus. You've got to obey and hope and work and obey and obey and obey and obey and the law. New Age, everything is God. God is in all and through all, and everything is God. It's nebulous. You're going to discover awaken your own inner God or your own inner goddess, and salvation becomes self-realization. Finally, in Judaism, now we do have some Messianic Jews who believe that, yes, Jesus was Messiah, Jesus HaMashiach, that he is Messiah. However, the vast majority of Judaism says we're still waiting on Messiah, and we have to obey the law, keep commandments, live morally, and wait. The system remains unfinished and unrecognized. Do you see how they're all saying this one little 2-letter word, do? Now, Christianity, we're going to add 2 letters to that. It's done. It's God's finished work. Let's look at Christianity. In all the other religions, it's you trying to climb and claw your way to God. Christianity is the only religion in the world where God came down to you. He's not some distant, angry God that we must appease, but however, Christianity is where God sent his son Jesus, wrapped in flesh, Emmanuel, God with us. That we don't have to climb the ladder of religion. Jesus came all the way down to us. It's why he came. It's why we exist. God became human. He lived without sin. He died in our place. He rose from the dead, and therefore he is authenticated to offer life with God as a free gift through Jesus Christ, our Savior. Amen? It's not earned. It's not deserved, achieved. It's not expensive. It's not cheap. It's free. It's a free gift through Christ alone. Every other religion is about human effort. Even some of Christendom, you have to be careful because they're going to say, you need to get baptized, you need to go to church, you need to do. We say, no, it's been done. Those are good things to do, but that follows salvation and discipleship. Salvation is by grace through faith in Jesus Christ alone. He's going to give us the life. Religious leaders came to take power. Jesus came to lay his power down. I love this picture. Mark 10:45, the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Instead of shedding the blood of others, Jesus shed his own. He didn't kill his enemies. He died for them. And with his final breath, he breathed out forgiveness upon them. Lord, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Is there anyone greater than Jesus? We're going to do a lot of great things as a ministry. We're going to see a lot of neat things happen in and among through all the things that we're saying with announcements, the classes, the mission trips. Nothing's going to top what Jesus did on the cross. Amen? Nothing's ever going to top, no matter how great what we give this life of thank you to you, Lord, we live. Nothing's ever going to top that Jesus came down and shed his blood that we might be with God forever. Are you today persuaded and convinced, given this evidence, that by faith alone in Jesus Christ alone, you can have life with God forever? If you've become certain of that today, please tell your leader. Feel free. It's the joy of my heart. I've gone out to eat with many people with questions about this. It's what I live for. And it doesn't make you any more or less saved, but it's just fun to celebrate together as we discuss this. So please take advantage of that. Feel free to. And we're going to see more contrast between Jesus and the earthly king, King Ahasuerus. And speaking of King Ahasuerus, he has the source of his glory in opulence, his palace, the feast, the length of the feast, the 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. He's in modern-day Iran, but what was known as Persia. And he's saying, hey, look at the glory. This is my glory. This is how I will demonstrate my glory. And Jesus found the source of glory in suffering and serving. And by the way, when we do that, one day he's going to reward us for it. It's not to obtain our salvation, but it's to give glory to him. And remember, to the amount that we suffer, to that amount we're glorified with him, and we get to share in the reign of Christ in the age to come. How cool is that? But verse 10 and 11, and before we get there, let's just look at that. Verse 10 and 11. King Ahasuerus is on the seventh day. And it says, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, remember, you could have as much wine as you wanted. That was another opulence factor there. He commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abathka, Zethkar, and Carcass. How many pregnant women we have? There's a baby list name for you right there. The 7 eunuchs who served in the presence of King Ahasuerus to bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing her royal crown, in order to show her beauty to the people and the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. So he calls Queen Vashti, and it appears he's not just ready to show off his palace, but his woman. And as you look into commentaries, we truly do not know if he was asking her to come wearing only her crown, although some commentators allude to this. I think it is in keeping with verse 4 and the context that what we do know from the Bible is that he is wanting to demonstrate, to prove, and to show. And of course, he was at this time, intoxicated. So I'm sure Vashti, as our book stated, God not only blessed her with beauty, but also a backbone. And she says, I'm not doing that. So regardless the circumstances, whether she thought he's just showing off and I don't want to go be before all those men, she refuses the king. She refuses a command from the king. Now, historically, remember from Nehemiah, you don't refuse the king. You don't even show disdain or displeasure in his presence. Everything's happy all the time, which is kind of strange for us in this age. But keeping in the historical context, we understand that. These are all exterior references. And what woman of substance longs to be merely an ornamental object? Well, she refuses him. And here at this feast, remember, big things happen at feasts. I used to joke, good things happen at Chili's. Okay, you guys know Chili's used to be real. I don't know, maybe it's still really good. I don't know, raise your hand if you've been to Chili's. The queso, the beef, okay, mix it up. Hey, listen, my friend who, she grew up in work salvation just like my dad. I love her, love her, love her. She got saved at Chili's, all right? Okay. Let's go. Good things happen at Chili's. So every time we say good things happen at Chili's, and you get their, like the queso and the beef that they have and the appetizers, 3 for $10, who knows what chemicals are in those things. But I'm just saying, good things happen at Chili's, okay? Good things, big things happen at the feast. And this is the feast where we see our first reversal of fortune. Now, this is another key aspect of Esther because it's going to look like it's going one way, and boom, it's going to flip. So, Queen Vashti guarded her dignity, and fortune flipped. She is escorted unceremoniously out of the palace. She's banished and pretty much just fired. And his advisors, again, they're merry with much wine, and they're making governmental recommendations, no less, recommend him to replace her with another queen. A search was made for beautiful young women who were first to be given beauty treatments for a year. Okay, sign me up, all right? I am massaged about once every 6 months, okay? It's a year of these things, of bathing. Neroli was one of the perfumes of the oils that they might have used back then. We had lavender, and they would take these baths and all these beauty treatments for a year. And verse 19, we see that all these list of advisors say, if it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the, notice this, Persians and the Medes. This is the law of the Persians and the Medes, so that, this is the purpose of it, the function of it, it will not be altered. Okay, if you make a law, it cannot be what? Altered. So everybody say, no take-backs. No take-backs, okay? When you hear the law of the Persians and the Medes, you're going to say, no take-backs, okay? There's no deleting that Instagram tweet. Once it's out there, it's out there. There's no take-backs, all right? How many provinces was he over, guys? Did you know they would have horsemen come to the middle? So when you make a law of the Persians and the Medes, and the historians are clear on this, the books are extensive. The Persian and the Medes laws, they were serious about it. When you make a law through that, the horsemen would go out north, south, east, west, and ride, and they had to translate this into every language and dialect of the 127 places, and they would ride till they got to the center of town, and they would post it in the middle. They'd get another horse, they'd ride to the next. This was a huge endeavor. I mean, this wasn't just, we're going to post this real quick. This is, everybody's going out. There's sleepless nights. There's translations, and it cannot be altered. There's no takebacks, all right? So, the royal advisors suggest this beauty contest of sorts. And they say that Queen Vashti shall come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she, who won't refuse the king. Now, King Ahasuerus could have gone and talked to his wife, right, ladies? He could have gone and went to go talk to her, but it said that he was enraged. So he's drunk, he's mad, and he writes her off by the letter of the law. A divorce is issued, and she's cut off, okay? This is another contrast. Earthly kings versus King Jesus. The letter of the law versus heart and relationship. The letter of the law versus heart and relationship. Another big contrast between earthly leaders and our heavenly leader. However, God used King Ahasuerus' communication failure to open up a vacancy for Queen, and one that he will use to save his people. This is a vital plot development. Then he sent letters to all the provinces, to each province in its own script, and to every people in their own language. All his wealth could not satisfy his quest for power. King of his land? Yes. King of his own house? Perhaps not. You see how embarrassing this could have been for King Ahasuerus. The kingdom of thingdom had taken root in his heart. And I think we see what I call the kingdom of thingdom in Dallas, in Flower Mound, in South Lake, and beyond, right, guys? Just go to the mall, okay? I remember one time sitting at the mall with my dad. I was like a high school student. And I remember sitting there, and I'm just like enjoying, like, because it's relational. There are good things that can come from shopping, okay? Because you're together and you're kind of good. That's great. But, my dad at that point, he was just like, and he's like sitting on the bench. I see him looking around, and I like kind of smile and look at him, and he's like, I'm like, what? He goes, it's all going to burn. It's all going to burn. This is just getting stuff, every 6 months they'll be back again. What they buy today, it won't last. Moths are going to corrupt. Thieves are going to break in and steal. It's all going to burn, And he was really studying, rewards theology, and what really lasts is the treasure in heaven. And Christ himself, Paul said, was guarding his reward. That is big time. So it just cracks me up. But the kingdom of thingdom is well, living and well. However, Christian satisfaction comes from Christ. Christian satisfaction comes from Christ. 1 Timothy 6:6-10 says, godliness with contentment is great gain. And if you're here in 2023, we studied 1 Timothy, adorn yourself with godliness. Godliness with contentment is great gain. The world is going to say, more, more, more. Kingdom of thingdom says, more, more, more. Hey, if we were satisfied, they wouldn't make as much money, right? Marketers don't benefit from our contentment. And big businesses don't profit from our peace. They profit when we feel like we're missing out. And again, another plug for Marcy's financial peace class. Come. We just had a beautiful marriage class with the Shormans, and I think this is really the next step, is getting on the same page with finances of where our treasure is, that our heart is also, okay? So think about this. Globally, most people live in much smaller homes, as we know. They share bedrooms across generations, and they usually have one car or no car. Remember last week when I told you a story when I was Brian's junker? Hey, catch me in that carpool pickup line, guys. You should have seen. It was like SUV, Escalade, SUV, Toyota Corolla, okay? You have to kick to get the handle out. I don't know. I'm like, and my first thought is like, do they see me? My second thought is like, you know what, Lord, you provided this. Thank you that Brian is in Belize so I can use his car. Your providence, Lord, in getting me here. And we don't have to be ashamed, you know? And I mean, the kids don't care. They're like, hey, Mom, they just get it. So no shame. Look into the joy of the people's faces from the villages, and don't buy the discontent. Don't buy the discontent. Receive provision. Practice gratitude in the here and now. Finding joy not in goods, but in God. Amen? Okay, a quick story, because I've got to say this. I feel led to. So when I was a college student, my roommate, as she often would do late night runs. Now, as a college student, sometimes, you eat sporadically, and then you got a big exam, and so, I would skip dinner, and here we are like 10:30, and you're still studying. And my roommate's like, hey, I'm going to, Taco Bell, you want anything? And if I hadn't eaten dinner, I would be like, yeah, a chalupa, this. You go back, and you're like, and if they're still doing the student discount, nachos Bel Grande, and this, and you're hungry, and you're like, sure, whatever, cheap fast food, that sounds great, okay? Because listen, I wasn't satisfied. I hadn't eaten dinner. So yeah, go ahead and go, get stuff, go, okay? But let's say I had a steak with the vegetables, with the flaky sea salt, and I'm sitting there studying, and she goes, hey, you want anything? It's like, no, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied. Dear ones, are we filled up with the meat of his word, with the beauty of worship and the power of his presence? Are we starting our mornings like that? Even the most ordinary mornings, we're making coffee, unzipping backpacks, orienting our day. Are we filled up with his prayer? You see what I'm saying? Are we filled up to go out, satisfied not in goods, but in God? Are we satisfied? Do we have that godly contentment? Brian and I had mentors from New Zealand that were in their 70s when we were first married. And they were missionaries for many, many, many years. And then it's kind of an interesting story how he came into this business, and they're very wealthy in the Dallas area. However, it was very clear to us that, yes, they're wealthy people and their hearts were in the right place. And just like my grandfather, same thing. So God is using these people in our lives. They would have a small group in their house, and Val and May would always make some tea, okay? We'd have hot tea every time. And I remember coming, and there's this video of this gardener in a faraway country that had to leave his family to go make money and send it over to his family. And it's in another language, but at the bottom, the English subtitles, it's like, he's talking, and he goes, I am a gardener, and I am very happy. I have a very good life. And he lives on this one bedroom, this cot, and he's a gardener. And tears start coming out of our mentor's eyes, just understanding that godliness with contentment is great gain. And I think they were recognizing, yes, simple is good. I am happy. I have wherever state I'm in, wealthy or not, I've learned to be content, Paul says. So do we have that? It's been well said, freedom is not how much I possess, but how little possesses me. Gang, do you possess your possessions, or do they possess you? Amen? Are we looking around, and are we trying to get things to be like King Ahasuerus and display the wealth and be prominent? Do we possess our possessions, or do they possess us? Freedom is not how much I possess, but how little possesses me. I remember my grandfather early in the morning getting up to pray, taking a stack of tracts and putting them, yes, in his fanny pack. It was the 90s, okay? Going around, and he'd come back sweating. He had his Walkman, he'd put it down, and his shirt would be gone. His hat would be gone. Grandpa, what happened? He's like, Master had need of it. Master had need of it. And he'd be giving out his shirt to people on the street who had need of it, to say, I don't need this. You take it. I don't need it. Do you possess your possessions, or they possess you? Let's end with this. In contrasting earthly leadership with heavenly leadership, let me say this. Possessing power, possessing wealth is not wrong. In fact, if you're in that position, whether you're in a position of power with being a mom, a grandmother, a preschool teacher, a corporate employee, all the way up to Supreme Court justice, let me say, God's put you there. When earthly power is exercised well, we embody our intended roles. Bosses, how are you to your team? Healthcare professionals, how are you using your training? Moms and grandmothers, how are you parenting and grandparenting? Teachers, how are you with your students? Earthly power grasps, heavenly power gives. Christ, who laid down his life for you, now walks with you into your everyday life. I want to say that again. Christ, who laid down his life for you. Think about that. That was really power under constraint. He now walks with you into your everyday life, saying, store your treasure in heaven. Because one day, on what will begin as another seemingly ordinary morning, when coffee brews, backpacks zip, emails open, and laundry waits, the sky could split, faith will become sight, and every unseen act of love will shine like gold. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Could we sing that? Sing that with me. But first, yes, I will turn the mic off. Beautiful. That's it. That's it. Look full in his wonderful face, and the kingdom of thingdom grows strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. Next week, we continue to build on our story. It goes from comfortable to uncomfortable as the plot is revealed. You're going to see in lesson 2 in your study book. Mark page 55. I think it's day 5. We're going to pay special attention to the character of Mordecai and the concept of what seems to be unrewarded loyalty, as this may be a particular help in the days to come. You all, God bless your discussion, and we'll see you next week.